The Rolling Stones promotional album is one of the world's rarest and most sought-after records. In this video, I'm going to tell you all about it and the story behind this very special copy. Hi, I'm Andrew from Parlogram Auctions, and this is one of those very special records which combines the magic ingredients of scarcity and desirability, making it not only highly collectible, but extremely valuable. There's also one other factor which makes this particular copy all that more special, which I'll show you a little later on in this video. A lot had changed for the Rolling Stones since the end of their last tour in Athens, Greece in April 1967. It wasn't just the business of touring which had changed, but also the membership of the band. After drawing a line under the Brian Jones era in Hyde Park on July 5, 1969, the Stones, complete with their new guitarist Mick Taylor, decided that they would go big for their forthcoming American tour, which was planned for the end of that year. The era of playing to overexcited teenagers in provincial cinemas and run-down dance halls were over, and they now found themselves catering for a more mature audience, which were more interested in listening to the music than screaming their heads off. The business of tour promotion was also beginning to be taken more seriously, and the Stones management realised that one of the keys to the tour's success would be gaining the support of the vast radio station network around the States. By late autumn 1969, the Stones had already released 2 official hits compilations. Big Hits, High Tide and Green Grass had been released first in the US in March 1966. Its UK release had, for some reason, been delayed until that November. The second compilation, Through the Past Darkly, Big Hits Volume 2, had been released simultaneously in both countries on September 12, 1969. In order to create something special for the radio stations to play, the Stones management came up with the idea of a sort of missing link best of the rest compilation of songs they liked but were missing from those 2 albums. And this 14-track compilation is what they came up with. Although similar, both the US and UK pressings differ from each other in a few ways. Firstly, the US London album contains a mixture of mono and stereo versions, but all on the UK Decca album are in mono. The covers for both versions were printed in the US, but are not the same. The rear panel information is totally different on each. Everything from the track listing information, sleeve note, back catalogue list, and the record company logos are different. There are also differences in the number of tracks per side. The US London album has 8 songs on side 1 and 6 songs on side 2, whereas the UK Decca album has 7 on each side. The album kicks off with the opening track from their 1964 debut album, Route 66, followed by that album's closing song, Walking the Dog. That's followed by the Chuck Berry tune Around and Around, which first appeared on their 5x5 EP from August 1964. Track 4 is Everybody Needs Somebody to Love, which was the opening track to their imaginatively titled 1965 second Decca album, Rolling Stones No. 2. The London album differs from the Decca release here, as it includes the shorter version of the track, which originally appeared on the Rolling Stones Now album in February 1965. Off the Hook is next, which as well as being on the No. 2 album, was also the B-side of the Little Red Rooster single in November 1964. Track 6 is Susie Q, which had originally been issued on the US 12x5 album in October 1964, 3 months before its UK appearance on the No. 2 album. The final track on side 1 is I'm Free, which also closed the UK version of Out of Our Heads. She Said Yeah opens up side 2 on this album, as it did on the UK version of Out of Our Heads in July 1965. The next 2 tracks are taken from April 1966's Aftermath album. Firstly, the sublime Under My Thumb, which is followed by Stupid Girl. Interestingly, there's nothing at all from 1967's Between the Buttons. Instead, the album moves on to 2000 Man, which is the sole representative from their Satanic Majesty's request. Tracks 5 and 6 are taken from Beggar's Banquet, where Sympathy for the Devil is followed by Prodigal Son. Finishing off the album is the then unreleased Love in Vain, from the forthcoming Let It Bleed album, which would be released one day before the tour ended on the 5th of December 1969. Now, legend has it that the version of Love in Vain included here is an alternate or different mix, but I can't hear it. If you can and you know what the difference is, please let me know in the comments. Opinions are divided as to how many copies were pressed. Some say 100, others say 200, some say 100 of each. Judging by the number of US copies which turn up on the market each year, a figure of 2,000 to 2,500 would be nearer the mark. Copies of the UK pressing, on the other hand, are another matter. The Decca press release for this album, which accompanied most copies, states that just 200 had been pressed. Judging from the few copies which are seen for sale in any given year, this would indeed appear to be correct. Some UK copies are said to have come with a booklet and a poster, which are more commonly found with the Let It Bleed album, but these were most likely added by dealers just to bling up their copies. What is certain though is that the UK discs came inside these red and white mono inner sleeves. The labels on the discs were the new, smaller, boxed Decca logo variety. Oddly though, they were blue, when other mono Decca albums at the time were red. The matrix numbers were XARL 9205-2A on side 1 and XARL 9206-1A on side 2. All copies carried the earliest possible mother stamper code combination, 1B, 1B. Now, these UK copies are highly prized and very expensive, but there's one variation of this pressing which is highly prized over all others, and they are the signed copies. There's much debate about when these albums were signed and about the signatures themselves. As you can see, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards and Mick Taylor have signed in blue ballpoint pen, but Bill Wyman's own and Charlie's signatures are in the same blue felt tip pen. Today, it's almost unanimously agreed that Bill Wyman signed for Charlie Watts. Charlie would always sign himself as Charlie Boy and never as Charlie Watts. Unfortunately, no photographs exist of any members of the group actually signing the albums, but that hasn't stopped them becoming the legendary collectible they are today, with less than 20 known signed copies proven to exist. The name of the man in charge of the promotion of this promotional album, and whose name appears as the contact on the album's press release, was the now disgraced ex-BBC DJ Chris Denning. Denning had once enjoyed privileged access to the Beatles during the mid-60s, but had fallen out of favour by the time he was sacked by Radio 1 in early 1969. He subsequently secured a job in the promotions department of Decca, and one of his first jobs there was to handle the promotion of this album. He and I actually crossed paths in 1990 when I was working as the rock and pop memorabilia specialist at Phillips Auctioneers in London. He'd got in touch and wanted us to sell his collection of Beatles memorabilia for him in one of our biannual memorabilia auctions. Amongst a large collection of poorly stored albums in his garage, I found his unsigned copy of this album, which was to be added to the items to be auctioned. Prices back then were nowhere near what they are today, and the catalogue estimate was a paltry £150 to £200, and I don't recall it actually making much more than that. Those were the days, huh? I didn't see another copy until 2015, when we sold a signed copy on eBay for £9,000 or $12,000, which was originally owned by a Radio 1 producer. Originally, these signed copies were given away mainly to people in the business they liked or knew well. This copy's original owner was the multi-talented Liverpudlian DJ Kenny Everett, who at the time was working for BBC Radio 1 and had edited the Beatles' 1968 and 1969 Christmas flexi-discs. His copy, this copy, had been passed down through his wife's family through the years until it was sold on the open market in 2011. Its current owner is now putting it up for sale with us on our website, parlogramauctions.com. A link to that is in the description below. I hope you enjoyed this diversion from my usual Beatles content, which will be back in the next video. But until then, I'll say bye for now and thanks for watching.